Hey guys, Leavy News here. So today I'll be doing my Soda Kazuichi analysis, and I was super excited that a lot of you guys requested him because he's honestly a character I really love and I really feel like is underappreciated a lot. So I was super excited to make this analysis and I hope you guys enjoy. Also, I have gotten several messages from people talking about if I could add subs to these videos, since I know a lot of people that watch my videos, they don't speak English as their first language, and I actually have the subtitles enabled, so if anybody would like to add subtitles to the video, you're free to do that since I have the caption thing enabled. So if you do decide to add that to any of the videos, just shoot me a message and let me know so I can go through and approve it. I also have all the analysis portions of the character analysis videos, or at least most of them, on my computer, so if any of you guys are thinking about doing this and you think having that would help, or if nobody does this and you guys just want me to post the scripts up as a Google document, I could do that as well. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about that really quickly because I knew it was something I had read about recently in the comment section. But anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and begin the analysis. So like with most characters, first I'll be talking about his history. In his free time events, he reveals to Hajime that he came from a poor family. They ran a bicycle shop, but since they had trouble selling anything, they ended up only having customers who needed a flat tire fixed or air pumped. It seems like he was more than likely the one doing the grunt work on these repairs, since he states that he's the genius of the family and that his father was hopeless and he was the one always helping out at the shop. He also states that growing up he was constantly around tools and junk, and he would use these to put things together and take them apart again. Something else I'd like to talk about regarding his past is his relationship with his father, which I believe can be interpreted several different ways, and I actually disagree with the popular opinion regarding this. So the popular opinion seems to be that his father was regularly physically abusive while he was growing up. The reason being because at one point Kazuichi expresses to Hajime that before Monokuma showed up, he was actually excited about the school trip because he had never gone on one before. When Hajime questions him as to why he didn't go on the one he had in middle school, he implies that the main reason was because his family was poor and that it would have cost them too much money for him to attend, so he faked being sick and ditched the field trip. Then he states, "But my old man found out later and beat the crap out of me." This seems to be the line that most people think implies that Kazuichi's father was physically abusive, but I think that you can look at the context of this whole story and argue that this isn't the case. So I'll break the whole scenario down as I interpret it. So the main story and in his free time events, it's implied and even flat out shown that Kazuichi craves relationships with others and that he really wanted to go on a school trip. So I think his parents knew this, and although they knew they couldn't afford it, they still wanted him to join his other classmates since they knew that it was important to him. A line that implies this is, "My damn old man, he knew better than anyone else that we didn't have any money." So I believe when they found out that he faked being sick and didn't go for their sake, they were upset with him, and that was why his dad, as he says, beat the crap out of him. I think he probably did physically hit him because of this, and I'm not in any way trying to justify it, but based off of the little information I know regarding his past and the context around the scenario, I think it's more than likely that his father did care about his son and wanted him to participate in school so that he could build a better future for himself, and that the line "beat the crap out of me" referred to a spanking, or something along those lines. So some evidence that he didn't receive physical abuse on a regular basis is that he acts drastically different than other characters in Danganronpa that are confirmed to have been abused growing up, such as Mikan and Fukawa. He mentions that growing up he was naive and too trusting of his friends in school. It's also implied that other than his best friend, who I'll talk about more in a bit, he did have other friends that he hung around. So this is actually contradictory to how a child who is supposed to be abused would act, since online I saw that one of the most common signs of physical abuse in children are a lack of trust and relationship difficulties. Since if you can't trust your parents, then who would you be able to trust? But since Kazuichi mentions that he was too trusting of his friends in school, this implies to me that this was more than likely a one-time thing, probably just a spanking or something along those lines, like I said before. And it can be noted that he is untrusting of others when he's older, but I think he would have shown signs of this as a child too if this was the case, and that his trust issues that we see in him in the game are actually from a different event that I'll talk about more in a little bit. It also mentions online that another characteristic of child abuse is the victim feeling worthless or damaged, which we've seen in characters like Fukawa or Mikan. But Kazuichi mentions that he's the genius mechanic of his family, implying that his parents more than likely encouraged and even praised his talents rather than degrading him, which is a common sign of an abusive parent. But as always, this is just my personal interpretation on the situation. If you think you have a good argument about him having an abusive dad, then feel free to type that theory below. But moving on, the instance that stands out the most from Kazuichi's past, and what seems to define his character the most, is the end of his friendship with someone in middle school that he referred to as his best friend. He mentions that they were very close and did everything together, but one day his friend began begging him to let him cheat off of his test, and Kazuichi complied. They ended up getting caught, and the boy ended up blaming Kazuichi, insisting that he willingly gave him the answers. Soda says that he didn't mind continually giving his friend answers as long as his friend didn't get in trouble. He even states that he didn't mind taking all of the fault for him. But after this, the boy began completely ignoring him and the friendship ended. Hajime believes the boy probably felt so guilty for how he acted that he couldn't even look at Kazuichi. And Kazuichi seems to believe the same now as well. But at the time, he felt used and was fed up with everything and decided to change his appearance by dyeing his hair, buying colored contacts, and although I don't think it's explicitly stated, but more than likely sharpening his teeth as well. Many people online also seem to believe that he did this as a way to fit in more, but I believe it was more so that he wanted to make his appearance more intimidating in order to prevent others from walking all over him, since it's implied that he did have other friends than just the best friend mentioned. And because he mentioned that he was so naive growing up and that he's generally unable to understand others' intentions for him and whether or not they're good or bad, I believe that more than likely his other friends he was referring to also probably took advantage of his kindness as well, and that his best friend betraying him was what really pushed him over the edge, since it appears as if this was his most significant relationship at the time. And although I do think he changed his appearance in order to no longer allow others to walk all over him, I don't think he expected his old friends to completely avoid him either, which is what he says happens in his free time events. I think this was a big contributing factor to his trust issues and fear of betrayal as well, since we see in one of the free time events that he seems pretty offended when Hajime says that he could imagine him hanging out with a bunch of delinquents. Another thing I want to mention regarding this is that although Kazuichi seems to have trust issues, it also seems that he's unable to push others away from him by being cruel or standoffish himself, since, as I mentioned before, it seems that he changed his appearance to intimidate others into no longer using him, rather than him just being mean to them. This implies to me that he's too compassionate to be mean to those he actually cares about, so he attempts to have an external force, such as his appearance, do it for him. Another example of this is in his free time event with Hajime. He states that he feels as if he's betrayed him, since Hajime seems to trust him so much without wavering, while he has doubted him throughout the killing game. So in order to make up for this guilt, he invites Hajime to the beach and tells him to punch himself rather than them fighting each other. This scene was really confusing to me at first, but I think I understand it now. So as mentioned before, Kazuichi hates the ideas of others betraying him, and this seems to be a huge fear for him and something that cut him really deep. So in this scene, when he felt that he had betrayed Hajime just as his best friend had betrayed him in the past, he probably felt extremely guilty and maybe thought that he didn't deserve Hajime's friendship anymore. So instead of pushing him away verbally or settling it with a fight, he asks Hajime to punch himself for him, implying yet again that he has too hard of a time pushing someone away that he cares about. But like I said, this scene is still a bit confusing to me, me, but this was the best interpretation I could come up with for it. So let me know if you have any other ideas regarding it in the comment section. I do want to talk a bit more about his friendship with Hajime. As mentioned before, Kazuichi seems to crave relationships, but it's also apparent that he has trust issues after what happened between him and his ex-best friend. And because of this, a lot of his actions can appear contradictory at first glance. For example, when he invites Hajime to hang out with him as a way to get in with the girls, specifically Sonia, he acts as if he's doing it only to make this run-in with the girls look incidental. But he also seems to have attached himself to Hajime and the idea of their friendship rather quickly, calling him his soul friend at one point and buying them both matching swimsuits. It can also be noted that Hajime seems to be the one that Kazuichi considers himself to be closest with, but he also seems to be the one that he doubts the most as well. This could be a side effect of his relationship with his old best friend, since that relationship at the time seemed to be his most significant one and hurt him so badly because of the abrupt ending and betrayal. So it makes sense that he would be the most doubtful of Hajime being the traitor if he is the one that he considers to be his closest friend, since that betrayal would hurt him the most. So I think the reason he does doubt Hajime so much is as a way to protect himself from being hurt yet again by someone he considers to be his best friend. Also, at the end of Kazuichi's free time events, we do see a bit of development in his character as well. He tells Hajime, "Thanks, because of you I understand now. What I really hated all along wasn't being betrayed. I hated myself for being too weak to believe in others. Whatever happens, I'll believe in you. That is what being friends is all about." This shows that he finally did realize that although he was betrayed in the past, it doesn't mean that he has to constantly fear betrayal now. As mentioned before, it is implied that Kazuichi does crave both romantic relationships, as we see with Sonia, and friendships, as we see with Hajime, and that he's very compassionate when it comes to helping his friends. The deaths of the other characters seem to affect him more deeply than many of the others, and we see that he's always looking for ways to cheer up those who are hurt emotionally or physically. For example, when he made the Mechamaru doll that he gave to Akane, and also in chapter 3 when Fuyuhiko is injured and in the hospital, he actually spends his free time with Hajime looking for a book to bring him to help him with his boredom while he recovers. So all this implies to me that he does crave friendship and he wants to be close and trust others, but since he was still holding on to that baggage from his past, he wasn't fully able to trust or believe in anyone, and this was making him miserable. And before this conversation with Hajime, I think he was blaming his misery he felt on others because he felt that all humans are creatures who will eventually betray you. But through his friendship with Hajime and seeing how Hajime's trust for him had never wavered or changed even after he had doubted him plenty of times, he realized that he was in fact creating his own misery and that he needed to learn to trust again. Next, I'd like to talk about his obsession with Sonia and why I believe he seemed to focus so exclusively on her. So as I've mentioned a million times previously, I do believe that Kazuichi does want relationships with others, but that he also fears betrayal. So if we keep this in mind, then in a way Sonia is his perfect dream girl, but only if she stays in his dreams. The reason being because Kazuichi believes that all humans are creatures that eventually betray each other, and that secretly everybody has bad intentions, since as mentioned before, he states that he was unable to tell if he was being used or not in the past. So I believe the reason he is so obsessed with Sonia is because to him, she is this unattainable princess that he can imagine is as perfect as he wants her to be, since she's like a celebrity in a way that he probably thinks he'll never be able to form a significant close relationship with her, since he probably believes that she is just so out of his league. So because of this, he considers her to be a step above everyone else, and this is why he refuses to doubt her as he does the rest of the students. Some evidence for this is that he constantly treats her differently because of her status and emphasizes the fact that she is a princess, stating things like she can't do this or that since she's a princess. It also appears that his attraction to her is very shallow and is based solely off of appearance and her status, since it can be noted that he actually seems to be turned off a bit by her actual personality traits, such as her obsession with the occult. It's also interesting how, as mentioned before, Kazuichi doubts Hajime the most, although he was someone that he seemed to consider consider was his closest friend to him, but with Sonia, it's as if he's regressed to how he describes himself in middle school, being too naive and trusting. One example would be that in the 4th trial, Sonia is very obviously being cruel to him by openly hoping that he's the murderer of the case and shooting down his ideas rather bluntly several times during the trial. At first, he seems upset, but then comes back asking her to be cruel to him again, assuming that she's teasing him. This is exactly how he describes himself when he was younger in his free time events, and how he was unable to tell whether or not someone's intentions were bad or good. He also refuses to doubt her, even if it makes sense for suspicion to fall upon her. An example being in the 1st chapter when the ultimate imposter mentions that only the Tagami family, the Kuzuryu clan, or the Novostelic kingdom would be able to pull off creating the killing game. To which Kazuichi responds that he or the Kuzuryu clan could be responsible, but there was no way that Sonia could possibly be the mastermind, even though it didn't make any logical sense at the time to exclude her from suspicion. In chapter 2, he mentions that he had always dreamed of dating a beautiful blonde girl, so I believe that this could have been a childhood dream for him to date someone like Sonia, so he holds her a peg above all the other students that he probably keeps in the category of creatures that eventually betray each other. So he feels that he can't really lump her in this category, since in his mind he's probably created this perfect version of her that's almost a godlike status. This could also be why he initially seems put off by her personality traits, but brushes it off rather quickly, replacing it once again with how he imagines her to be. I'd also like to mention that I do actually think he's unaware that he's doing this, and that he does truly think he wants to be in a relationship with her, but that it would only be the version of her that he's created in his own mind. I think if he was ever to date her or get to know her as a person, this godlike version of her that he's created would die, and he would begin to see her as a normal person and slowly begin to lump her in the same category as everyone else, someone who can't be trusted and will eventually betray him. But anyways, this will conclude the analysis portion of the video, and next we'll be moving on to the trivia section. And as always, I am getting 99% of this information from the Wikia page. Firstly, the kanji for Kazuichi simply means peaceful one, while his surname translates as rice field of dominance. So being an expression literally means left and right. It could be that Kazuichi's name and surname are meant to have a bit of irony to them, considering that while he originally seemed to be very self-confident and carefree, he quickly turned hysterical following the appearance of Monokuma. As mentioned in the analysis portion, Kazuichi originally had black hair and wore glasses before he had changed his appearance, and it also mentions in his free time events that despite becoming a mechanic who is an expert in vehicle machines, Kazuichi has motion sickness, and this is most likely the reason why Kazuichi would rather take apart machines rather than ride them. It's also revealed in one of Mihiru's free time events that Kazuichi never actually washed his jumpsuit. It also states on the Wikia page that it's implied that Kazuichi might know how to read English, since he tells Hajime at one point what a sign-written English meant. Even on the hardest difficulty, Kazuichi's rebuttal showdown arguments only take a single strike to dispel in chapter 4. It also states on the Wikia page that it was confirmed that in Kazuichi's official spin-off manga that he can in fact sew, and that he learned from watching his parents. During chapter 5, after discovering an email in the Monobeast factory that discusses students causing a riot leading to the end of the world, Kazuichi references the popular anime and manga series Death Note, stating that there's no way the events in the story are real because they are more impossible than a notebook that kills people just by writing in it. Lastly, I'd like to mention that it can also be noted that many people theorize that Kazuichi was the one to build the executions for Danganronpa 1, since his dream was to build a rocket ship which was used in Jin Kirigiri's execution, and because in one of his free time events he mentions that he was working on building a motorbike that could go up to 585 miles per hour. This could have been the motorbike used in Iwata's execution. It also seemed to be implied in the anime as well that Kazuichi was in fact the one who built Big Bang Monokuma. But this will conclude the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, feel free to leave your own opinions and theories in the comment section below. As for the next video, I would like to do a video on the unused executions, but I really really need art submissions if I do end up doing that. There's only official art for some of them, and I really don't like using other people's art unless I get direct permission. So if you are interested in making some art for that video, please let me know. You can send an email to the email shown on the screen, or you're free to message me on any of my social media accounts, really. But please let me know if I don't get enough submissions, or if I need more time to make it, then I'll probably do like a top list or something. I know I said I would try not to do that before V3, but a lot of you guys have requested like a top 5 couples or ships video, so I may end up doing that next if the top enemies executions video doesn't go through. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, Kazuichi is a character I really love, so I hope I did him justice. But anyways, I will see you guys real soon.
Subscribe to Weeby News for more hope-filled videos.